Today, I am going to be discussing and reviewing 5 Xbox 360 games that you should never buy. They are not worth your time or your money, and they should just be completely and totally skipped. Timestamps in the description in no particular order. The first game is Hydrophobia, which is technically an Xbox 360 exclusive, and it's a pretty bad game. Developed by Dark Energy Digital and published by Microsoft, this third-person shooter is a meh title gameplay-wise, with a horrible story that turns this into a bad game instead of just being a meh one. So, the story does kinda have a weak intro, and it almost feels like you started a book on the third chapter. But the rest of the story is actually pretty decent, up until the ending. On Xbox 360, there is no ending. The game abruptly stops at a random moment, and that is it. There's no sequel, no part 2, nothing on Xbox 360. I read that Hydrophobia was initially supposed to release in episode form, like old Telltale games, but the devs never made it past episode 1 on the 360, but there was no kind of disclosure or notice on the 360 store, and it masqueraded as a full finished game. But instead of finishing up Hydrophobia, the developers abandoned the 360 to release Hydrophobia Prophecy on the PlayStation 3 and PC. And that version of the game has a much different story, and it actually has an ending if what I read is true. But Prophecy never made it to the Xbox, leaving 360 users with the short end of the stick, and the base Hydrophobia never dropped on any other platforms, which is why I said it's technically an Xbox exclusive. So yeah, a crappy story ending and a crummy move from the developers made Hydrophobia a bad game that is just not worth buying unless you're purchasing it solely for the Avatar Awards and gamer picks you get with this game. Which is actually a little sad, because while the gameplay in Hydrophobia isn't great, this title did have some creative ideas. For one, this game has your character wielding a single weapon for the entire game, and instead of giving you multiple weapons, you have multiple ammo types, like electric bullets, exploding rounds, stuff like that. But most ammo types were either pretty cruddy or extremely rare in the story mode, so this feature wasn't that useful, and I mostly just used the default sonic rounds, which are taser-like bullets that must be charged before firing. I mean, you technically don't have to charge sonic rounds, but uncharged shots do close to no damage, and even a fully charged shot takes several rounds to kill a single enemy, which is where environmental items come into play. Hydrophobia is filled with things like gas tanks, red barrels, electric traps, and pools of water, which you can use to fight enemies, be it blowing up a barrel while an enemy stands beside it, or shooting a foe with sonic bullets and making him fall into water to drown, or frying opponents with electricity. You can get a little creative in combat situations, and there's even a pretty decent survival horde mode in which you have to fend off 5 waves of enemies in a small room. Graphically, this game looks meh, and it could be a little glitchy at times. Plus, this game has a lot of swimming sections, and swimming was just kind of janky and clunky in general. But again, the unfinished story is what makes Hydrophobia a bad game, even though it can be fun at times, and it is just not a game that I can suggest picking up. Now, this one is backwards compatible and is available digitally only with a price of $10, and it does get sales from time to time, but even on a sale, just skip it. The second game on today's list did get a physical release, but it's not backwards compatible, and that is Kane and Lynch Dead Men, a 2007 third-person shooter developed by IO Interactive and published by IDOS. And this is a rather cruddy game in my opinion. Now, the story isn't bad. I actually like the story, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it, being about a dude named Kane trying to protect his daughter and his wife from a crime group called the Seven, who he's in trouble with. But after they kill his wife, the story turns into a mission for Kane to take down the Seven and to protect his daughter from them. And apparently, this title does have 2 endings, but I never beat the game thanks to a game-breaking glitch. That glitch being a escort-like mission on Chapter 14, in which you have to provide sniper fire to protect a man named Carlos, while he attempts to plant an explosive on a gate. Even though I would shoot all of the guards present, he would just fall over dead and or not move, making the game impossible to finish, and I gave up after numerous failed attempts. But even when this title did work properly, the gameplay felt chunky and stiff, which was not helped by often choppy frame rates and the fact that you have very little HP even on the lowest difficulty, and I had a lot of cheap deaths in this game. Now, Kane and Lynch did have a couple cool features, like being able to command your allies to do things, or having sick melee takedown animations, but this doesn't really make up for the less than great gameplay. Graphically, for a game of its time, Deadman is not very impressive. Keep in mind that this released the same year as games like Medal of Honor Airborne, Modern Warfare, and BioShock. But at least the VAs were pretty good, and the soundtrack wasn't bad. But overall, Kane and Lynch just does not deliver, and I do not suggest spending your green paper on Deadman. On the plus side, used copies of this game are usually cheap, but it's still a game that I do not recommend buying. Going to the third title for today's video, we have a Kinect game that is UFC Personal Trainer, a crummy workout game developed by Heavy Iron Studios and published by THQ in 2011. And I do not have many positives for this game. For starters, the workouts in this game are pretty tame for a title using the UFC license, and it was about as intense as a kindergarten PE class. While I didn't attempt every single workout in Personal Trainer, the half dozen or so that I did try went about as follows: 5 minutes of stretching and warming up, 4 to 5 minutes of light to mid cardio, and then 5 minutes of cooling down and stretching, with breaks in between every activity. So yeah, a pretty inactive excuse for a workout video game. I mean, I can think of multiple non-workout Kinect games that are much more active than this, such as Rise of Nightmares, Kinect Adventures, shoot, even Kinect Star Wars. Now, that being said, UFC isn't completely worthless, as it does contain some fun minigame activities that can give you a decent cardio workout depending on how hard you try. These mini-games are Hit the Mitts, which teaches you some basic martial arts move, Tire Flip, in which you flip over a digital tire, and this involves a lot of squatting, and then Speed Bag and Free Striking, in which you punch small and large punching bags. And you can change what kind of punching bag you want, and some of them are Xbox themed, and they actually look pretty cool. But apart from these 4 activities, UFC Personal Trainer is a joke, and it's not really helped by iffy motion controls during the workouts, and the fact that this game frequently has lags and input delay in general. Graphically, this title looks okay for a Kinect game, and the music is alright, but you should really just pass on this game and never buy it. On the bright side, I did unlock some gloves for my Xbox avatar by playing this game, and there are a couple other avatar awards offered in UFC PT, but they're not worth it. If you want a Kinect workout game, try Your Shape Fitness Evolved 2012. Again, used copies of this game are dirt cheap, and needless to say, it is not backwards compatible on modern Xbox consoles. For the 4th game on today's list, Ubisoft's The Crew. Low-hanging fruit, I know, but this is an online-only game and the MP servers were shut down years ago, so copies of this game are just paperweights. The only reason to buy this one is for collecting purposes. Going over to the 5th game on today's list, we have Blood Knights, a BC Xbox Live Arcade game from 2013. This one was developed by Deck 13 and published by Calypso Media, and this is probably the best game I'm discussing today, but I still do not recommend buying it, at least not at full price. For starters, Blood Knights graphically doesn't look great. But hey, looks aren't everything. How does it run? Not particularly well, with some choppy frame rates and minor glitches here and there. But hey, FPS drops and some lag don't ruin a game. What really matters is it fun? Sometimes, actually yeah, it can be enjoyable in short bursts, but that's the key, in short sessions. In longer sessions, the issues of this weird third-person top-down hack-and-slash shooter platformer become more annoying and noticeable. For starters, the fixed camera is often pretty bad on single player, and it's not uncommon to miss platforming jumps or to run into environmental objects simply because you can't see well. But it gets worse on co-op. Much worse. Unlike in some co-op games, Blood Knights doesn't split your screen in half when playing with a friend. It more of pulls a Lego game stunt and has both players on one screen at once. And this is fine. Many games pull this off just fine. But Blood Knights doesn't, as camera angles go from kinda bad to really bad, to the point you will sometimes walk past essential items or buttons because you literally cannot see them on co-op. This happened to me while playing with my wife, and we went bonkers trying to figure out why we could not progress, and it was because we had to press a button that simply was not visible while playing with two people. Yeah, not okay, especially when multiplayer was one of the main marketing points of this game. For the gameplay itself, Blood Knights is okay. On solo, you control a vampire man and woman. The dude, Jeremy, has melee attacks, and the girl, Alyssa, has miniature crossbows, and they both have their own special unique attacks and abilities. On co-op, player 1 is always the dude, and player 2 the dudette, with no way to change this, but on solo play, you swap between the two by pressing Y. As far as RPG elements, this title has stuff like leveling up, looting, and buying new gear, side quests, and a choice-driven story, so it covers the minimums for making a role-playing game. But it does kinda drag on after a while, which isn't helped by sometimes awful voice acting, although some VAs are okay and the music is pretty decent. Again, Blood Knights is probably the best of all the games discussed today, but I for sure would not pay the full $10 for it. If you are determined to buy this one, do what I did and wait for a promotion. And yeah, 5 Xbox 360 games that you should never waste your money on. Tell me down in the comments if you agree or disagree with this list. And if you'd like to see a part 2, as I'm pretty confident I could come up with 5 more 360 games that are not worth buying. Thanks for watching and for putting up with my bad narrations. I really do appreciate it. I know that I'm a horrible narrator, so if you stuck around to the end, I cannot tell you how much that means to me. And for those new here, I mostly review and discuss Xbox 360 games, so do feel free to watch some of my other vids if that sounds like your thing, and follow me on GameRam for hints at upcoming videos. And like always, all of my vids are man-made by me. Keep YouTube human and only support man-made videos, and I don't consent for my voice and likeness to be copied and modified by robots in any way, shape, and form. Thanks again for watching, God bless, take it easy, peace. Plus, this game has a lot of swimming sections, and swimming was But hey, FPF